Alysa Liu and Eileen Gu, hero and villain of Olympic representation divide. Is it just me, or do Alysa Liu and Eileen Gu look like the hero and villain of a Disney movie? Social media user @NoOpinion posted on X, attracting hundreds of thousands of views. The post was attached with photos of Liu celebrating a figure skating medal and Gu modeling at an event. The debate gained significant traction following Liu's triumphant return from retirement to win 2 gold medals for the US in the women's individual and team figure skating events in Milan. Meanwhile, Gu secured a gold and 2 silver medals in freestyle skiing for China, cementing her status as the most decorated freeskier in Olympic history. Born and raised in California to families of Chinese descent, Liu, 20, and Gu, 22, are both champions in their respective sports. However, because one competes under the American flag while the other represents China, they have been placed at opposite ends of a comparison they did not create. Gu, dubbed the Snow Princess by Chinese media, was born in San Francisco. Her parents separated when she was young, and she was raised by her mother, Yang Gu, a successful venture capitalist who studied at Peking University and Stanford. Gu grew up between 2 worlds, spending her school years in San Francisco and her summers in Beijing, her mother's homeland. She began skiing at age 3 in the Lake Tahoe area and won her first national championship at just 9 years old. Initially competing for the US, she switched her sporting allegiance to China in 2019 at age 16, citing a desire to inspire millions of young people in Beijing. At the 2022 Beijing Olympics, Gu won 2 gold medals and 1 silver. By the 2026 Milano Cortina Games, she was one of the world's highest-earning female athletes, bringing in approximately $23 million annually. In China, she has become a sports icon, with millions of followers. State media outlet Global Times called her an idol for the whole world. Ice Angel. Liu's background was a stark contrast. She is the daughter of Arthur Liu, a political activist who participated in the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests and was forced into exile. Because this topic remains censored in China, Liu's achievements receive little to no mainstream media coverage there, according to BBC. Liu was raised in California by her single father in a large family that at one point shared a 1-bedroom apartment, moving from Clovis to Richmond, a working-class city in the San Francisco Bay Area. She trained at the Oakland Ice Center and became the youngest ever U.S. national figure skating champion at age 13. At 16, Liu walked away from figure skating, citing burnout and loss of interest. 2 years later, she returned to the ice on her own terms. At the 2026 Winter Olympics, Liu ended a 24-year drought for American women by winning the individual figure skating gold. Media outlets have even nicknamed her the Ice Angel, the hero and the villain. The rivalry between the two narratives has intensified alongside US-China tensions. According to Professor Inan He of Lehigh University, the new Cold War atmosphere dictates that individual identity is increasingly judged through the lens of national loyalty, leaving little tolerance for athletes navigating dual identities. Gu has faced ongoing criticism in the US for her decision to compete for China. The backlash flared up again recently after American freeskier Hunter Hess expressed mixed feelings about representing the US amid domestic political controversies. When President Donald Trump called Hess a real loser, Gu defended the American athlete, stating, "As someone who's been caught in the crossfire before, I feel sorry for the athletes." This comment drew immediate criticism. Former NBA player Enes Kanter Freedom labeled Gu a traitor, questioning why she felt comfortable criticizing Trump but remained silent on Chinese policies. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance also weighed in, stating he supports athletes who grew up in America and chose to compete for the country. Meanwhile, Liu is largely ignored on Chinese social media. When there are posts praising her, they are often met with comments such as, "Why are you praising this person? Her whole family is anti-China." Liu's family has previously stated they were targeted in a campaign directed by the Chinese government to monitor dissidents abroad. In 2022, Liu revealed that FBI agents informed her family they might be under surveillance. While the figure skater recounted the experience as if it were a bizarre prank, her father emphasized he understood the severe price of speaking out back in 1989. These details have garnered Liu's sympathy and admiration in the US, sharpening her contrast with GU in online discussions. Analysts argue that public attention goes beyond nationalism. Professor He told BBC that social class heavily shapes how the public perceives both athletes. GU grew up in an elite environment, attending prestigious private schools and living in San Francisco's affluent Sea Cliff neighborhood. Consequently, he views her choice to represent China as a calculated business decision. Liu, on the other hand, is the daughter of exiled refugees who struggled through hardship, walked away from her sport, and returned purely out of love for it. Her trajectory perfectly fits the story of the American dream. Dave Portnoy, social media personality and founder of American media company Barstool Sports, affirmed that he would never support GU. When in life, if you have the chance to be Alysa Liu or Eileen Gu, always pick Liu, he said, as quoted by Daily Express. Portnoy considered Liu an American icon and predicted Hollywood would eventually adapt her story into a film. In contrast, when Marvel actor Simu Liu expressed pride in Gu's accomplishments, he was met with a wave of comments demanding he go back to China. Following a grueling 2026 Olympic schedule where she competed in 3 separate freeski finals, GU admitted she felt like she was skiing with the weight of 2 countries on her shoulders after missing gold in the slopestyle event. While supporters viewed this as a moment worthy of empathy, critics reacted harshly, arguing she only represents one country, and it is not the United States. Amidst the controversy, the athlete's actual sporting achievements risk being overshadowed. They skate and fly and fall in ways most of us can't imagine, then wake up the next morning as symbols, drafted into arguments they never applied for. In the winter glare of Milan Cortina 2026, 2 American-born Asian athletes ended up holding opposite ends of the same rope. Alysa Liu, crowned in U.S. gold in women's figure skating, and Eileen Gu, still competing for China while living a life that spans continents and cameras. And somewhere between them, the public wrote a fairy tale with only 2 roles, hero and villain. That story is easier to sell than the truth. 1. The machine that needs a hero. Every Olympic broadcast is built like a cathedral. Music swelling, slow-motion breath, the commentator whispering history. The games are marketed as a clean moral universe, hard work rewarded, character revealed, nations represented. The camera loves an arc. Alysa Liu's arc fit the cathedral perfectly. She returned to competition after stepping away, then won the United States its first women's figure skating Olympic gold in 24 years. In the American imagination, that isn't just a result, it's a restoration. It's proof that the country still makes miracles, still manufactures comeback stories the way old factories used to make steel. The hero template is comforting because it is simple. She left. She came back. She saved the day. Alysa didn't ask to save anything. But the nation, like a crowd seeing a candle in the dark, leaned in and called her flame. In that moment, the flag behind her mattered more than the language inside her head, the ache in her feet, or the private reasons she ever walked away. The crowd needed a hero, so it made one. 2. The machine that needs a villain. And then there's the other template, the one that requires betrayal. Eileen Gu has been living in that template since she chose, as a teenager, to compete for China while being born and raised in the United States. She became the kind of athlete people talk about as if she were a policy memo with cheekbones. For some Americans, she's a villain for switching sides. For some Chinese nationalists, she's a trophy that must never show a crack. And for the modern internet, she is something even more combustible, a person who refuses to stay inside one box. After the 2026 Games, She could be seen pivoting quickly from Olympic competition to fashion whack, another detail that the public loves to use like a courtroom exhibit. To some, that proves she's not pure. To others, it proves she's brilliant. To the loudest voices, it proves whatever they already wanted to believe. There's a line of commentary that treats her as a corporation in human form, an athlete as brand more than athlete as flag. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe it's the only language our era has left for global success. We don't say she's talented, we say she's a platform. And what do crowds do with platforms? They climb them. They throw things at them. 3. The divide isn't really about them. The Olympic representation divide pretends it's about loyalty. But loyalty is just the costume the argument wears. Underneath, the divide is about something older and rawer: permission. Who is allowed to belong fully to a country? Who is allowed to be complicated? Who is allowed to say, without apology, I contain more than one place? Alysa and Eileen are both daughters of a world where people migrate, identities braid, and passports don't fully describe the heart. The difference is that Alysa's story, this year, aligned with an American hunger for a homegrown champion. Eileen's story, by contrast, pokes the bruise of U.S.China tension and turns athletic choices into political theater. So the crowd turns them into opposites because opposites are easy. Hero, the one who chose us. Villain, the one who didn't. But both labels are simplistic ways to avoid the uncomfortable middle question. What if neither of them owes us the kind of clarity we demand? 4. 2 girls, 2 spotlights, 1 mirror. Imagine a hallway backstage at the Olympics, the kind no camera lingers on. Fluorescent lights, scuffed floors, athletes walking past each other with headphones on like armor. Alysa passes Eileen. If the world were less hungry, they might share a nod that says, I know what this is like, being watched until you become a headline, because both are living with a kind of modern surveillance. The surveillance of nationality, the surveillance of diaspora, the surveillance of being Asian in Western fame, where you are often asked, explicitly or not, where are you really from? Alysa answers that question by existing. A US champion, no asterisk required. Eileen answers it by refusing the premise. A global athlete, fluent in more than one home, taking criticism in exchange for freedom. The mirror is this. Both answers make people angry. Because people are not angry at the athletes. They are angry at the idea that identity can't be policed. 5. The mythology of representation. The Olympics sells representation like it's a sacred vow. You wear the uniform, you become the nation. But athletes are not nations. They are not treaties. They are not propaganda posters. They are people whose lives are often shaped by coaches, federations, eligibility rules, sponsorship ecosystems, and family histories that don't fit neatly into one anthem. Alysa didn't become more American by winning. She simply became more visible. Eileen didn't become less American by choosing China. She became more controversial, because control